Welcome to Born or Made, the podcast that dives deep into the heart of success and identity. Are the traits that define us as leaders ingrained from birth, or are they carved out throughout our experiences? Join your host, Anne-Marie LaTulip, as we ask these questions to some of the most insightful and inspiring entrepreneurs of our time. Each episode, we explore their journeys, the decisions that shaped them, and how they've molded their own paths to success. So whether you're an aspiring entrepreneur, a seasoned business owner, or simply curious about the interplay between nature and nurture in professional growth, you're in the right place. Get ready for compelling stories, transformative insights, and a new perspective on what it really takes to make it in the world of entrepreneurship.
Hello, and welcome back to the Born or Made podcast. I am your host, Anne-Marie LaTulip, and with me today, I have the lovely Sue Goodrich. She is a soul purpose coach, human design guide, and a modern-day good witch with a wand on a mission to help entrepreneurs stop forcing their way through business and start flowing in alignment with who they truly are. Known for her warm presence and her signature wand wave, yes, people remember, she blends human design, energy work, and aligned strategy to guide her clients back to the purpose they were born for, not the one they were conditioned to chase. Whether she's leading a workshop, designing an abundant entrepreneur roadmap, or helping someone decode their energetic blueprint, Sue's here to remind us that when strategy meets soul, abundance isn't just possible, it's inevitable. Because your design already knows the way. Sue just helps you trust it. Oh my goodness, that is wonderful. Hi, Sue.
Hi. So
Did
good
you?
to see you, Anne-Marie.
Yes, you too. You too. Did you have your wand waving when I was reading that? Because I did not.
Yes.
I couldn't see you because I was reading. So I was like, I hope she has it. So yes, welcome. Sue, you and I have talked before, but I'm introducing you now to my audience, and I'm so excited to do that. Tell us about what is the wand? Why the wand? How did that come to be? Tell me about that.
Well, the wand came from the Good Witch. The Good Witch originally came from when I was a little girl. There were kids who used to make fun of my name, and they would call me Susie Goodwitch instead of Susie Goodrich. So and then I became a transformational life coach. So much of the work that I do has to do with transformational work. And what I find is that it feels like magic because, it's not like the logical stuff that we do, though, much of the time we can get stuck in our heads because that's what we've been taught.
Yes.
And it really is about, the magic of the transformational processes. And so it does feel like magic.
It is magic. It's magic, I imagine, not only to experience the transformation, but to watch somebody and actually be the catalyst for that transformation, right?
Yeah. And that's such a gift to be able to watch somebody do that, like watch somebody transform before your eyes. It's like, and for me, I know that's my soul purpose, right? My soul purpose is to help others find their soul purpose. That's what I discovered when I discovered human design.
Okay, so tell me about soul purpose. I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory, but for someone that might not be sure what that means, can you describe that a little bit deeper?
Well, a soul purpose, meaning, and I don't believe that we have one soul purpose. And literally the other day, I was doing a neurographic piece of art, which is kind of transformational work. And I uncovered that really the truth is our soul's first purpose is to look after this, to look after the temple that our soul lives in, right?
Oh, that's so good. Yes. And so many people don't do that.
Yeah, I know. And it is a big piece of what I coach around. It's like, and I catch myself all the time, even myself not doing it. And there's a history, a story that goes along with that. But I believe that our soul purpose really, like our souls, as in plural, like our soul has more than one purpose. But I know from what I've looked at with human design, I've just seen the patterns that when we call these things called channels, and there are 32 of them, but we only have, usually most of us only have about maximum 4 channels that are completely filled. In other words, we have both gifts or gates that are at the either end. And when we have that as a channel, own that as a channel, it's part of our design. Things that we do just flow. So I was talking to someone I was working with. She's an accountant and she wanted to do some breath work as well. So I was like, I wanted to help her, build out her new business. But she's like, I'm not sure how I put this with this. And then she was helping me with the with my money piece, right? With my
Yep.
doing my accounting for my
Mhm.
books. Now I can do it. I have part of the channel, but I don't love doing it. It's not something that really lights me up. So I had her do it and I was so grateful. I said to her, I said, I really, really appreciate what you're doing for me. And she said, oh, no problem. It just flows. And it just really reminded me when I look at, of course, when I looked at her chart, she has the full money channel.
Oh,
So it's her natural way of doing things. And so what I recognize is that human design really is a fun way for us and a fast way for us to find out what we're really meant to do. Because when we're meant to do something, it does flow. It's easy for us.
mhm. I love human design. And, you know, I don't know if it was just me that hadn't heard of it, but up until maybe last year, when I started, having my podcast and interviewing some people that were, interested in human design, I had never heard of it before. And I feel like it's something that is so powerful like you were saying, understand who you really are and what you're meant to do. But I don't think a lot of people know about it or understand exactly what it is. You were mentioning the channels. I want to talk about that a little bit because a lot of people have heard of chakras, right?
Mhm.
So channels and chakras, completely different things. Would you agree?
Yes,
Okay.
but in human design, we also have centers, which are very much aligned with chakras.
Okay. Okay. So we have centers and channels.
Centers and channels and gifts and lines.
Wow. That fascinating. Okay. So what is your human
And I'm
design?
sure there's more that I don't even know.
What is your human design?
So I'm a manifesting generator.
Yeah, me too. I think we talked about that before.
Yes,
Yes.
right. We move really fast and
Yes,
we
we do.
pivot on a dime, right? And we probably have at least a dozen, maybe a whole room full of unfinished projects.
Yeah. And I don't know about you, but I am miserable when I don't have anything to do. Like boredom to me is the worst thing in the entire world. I hate not having anything to do. And I never knew why that was until I found out I was a manifesting generator.
Right. We're just meant to just create and manifest. And, I mean, we are really also meant to really make sure, like that, when I come back to the soul purpose, our first soul's purpose is to look after this. And as manifesting generators, it's really important that we look after this because we are meant to serve from our overflow. And we really just serve by being overflowed.
Oh,
Like
that's so powerful.
because that's
Yeah.
how simple it can be. We spend so much of our time trying to figure out, am I worthy enough? Am I doing enough? But the truth is, when we're full and overflow, we're serving already.
Yeah. And so human design, for anyone listening, is determined by your date and time and location of birth. Is that correct, Susan?
Correct. Yeah.
And how
Three
many?
simple things.
Yeah, I mean, it's there's no gray area. It's based on facts. So there's like it's no way like with the zodiac. Sometimes you're like, oh, but I have this rising sign and this and that. You know what I mean?
Well, it is because it's interesting because it's based on astrology as well as the gene keys and apparently also the Kabbalah. So it's only about 100 years old. It was
Okay.
downloaded by the name of I don't know his whole name, but his first name is Ra. So he divinely downloaded this information and built this out. And, I worked with somebody who she actually studied with him directly at one point in her life. He's
Oh
not
wow,
here on the planet anymore, but yeah. But yeah, it's fascinating. And
it
I've
is.
just seen the patterns, right? Like to me, that's like what's so fascinating.
Yeah, it really is. And how many main human designs, like manifesting generator? How many of those are there?
Okay, so those are types. So there's
Okay.
5 types, right? There's there's manifestors, there's generators, there's manifesting generators, there's projectors and reflectors. And
Okay.
so reflectors are only about 1% of the population. And I just met another one the other day, and I want to introduce him to you because I think he'd be perfect on this podcast.
Yes. Oh, that's so exciting you say that, because I think I might have mentioned to you last time we spoke that up until now I've only interviewed women, but I'm going to be opening this up to men as well, because I think hearing their perspectives would be fascinating as well. So thank you. Yes, definitely. So tell me, can you spend just a couple minutes on each type so that we understand sort of, you know, how each person is, I guess that's the best way to put it, like a reflector. How
Is
does a reflector?
operates. Okay, let me see
Yes.
if I can get them all. So there's some basic criteria that are, that I can talk about.
Yeah.
Um, I may have to pull up my notes because I don't know it all by heart. There's
Oh,
so much
sorry.
to it, right? That's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah.
So
Just like super
okay,
simple,
so
just overview.
reflectors being 1% of the population have all of their centers are called undefined. They're undefined, which means that they pick up other people's information, and basically what they're doing is they're just reflecting it back to you. I have to tell you, I felt rather vulnerable after having a conversation with somebody who was a reflector, because they're reflecting back to me everything about myself. And of course, most of us can't see everything we have about ourselves, right?
Yeah.
That can be kind of scary and vulnerable. Um, Projectors. Now, what can I tell? My mother's a projector. They need a lot of rest. They actually need to make sure that they take time and rest. So that's one of the things I know
Okay.
about them. I know a lot more about manifestors, generators, and manifesting generators. And so manifestors really can create mostly just by thinking about things. That's why they're manifestors. But they have a defined, I believe they usually have a defined Anya and crown. And so they can kind of think things into being. The rest of us pretty much need to use our bodies to manifest. We really need to come into our beings. So manifestors are only 9% of the population, but for some reason I've been attracting a lot of those into my world.
Interesting.
But they're fast. Like they're really fast. They don't need a lot of direction. You can give them a little bit and they pick up and they run with it.
Okay.
Generators are like literally like the generator. It just keeps going and going and going and going and going, and they have to just keep going. But us manifesting generators, we need to go. We're going to go, 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 but then we're going to need to take our downtime, right?
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
We need that. We need that downtime. And that's important because what I know is our culture has really conditioned us to push through, to just keep pushing through. In
Yeah.
fact, I have this process that I call flow, and in it we take a look at emotional alchemy, and at the end of it I talk about something called, I give you a bliss break to do, right? So at the end of flow we need to stop and take a break, celebrate our wins and wind down. That's what the W in flow stands for. But when I was putting my bliss break into the software, and it's a little training piece, and I noticed that at the very end of it, while I was testing it out, it said, "Oh, you've just finished this piece. Just keep pushing through." And I'm like, wait a minute, that's not what I were trying to teach. So I asked TAC if there was a way I could change this. And they came back to me and they said, "Sorry, it's hard coded in here." And I'm like, that's
Really?
how conditioned. Yeah, that's how conditioned it is. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it is a message that we get throughout like throughout childhood and school, and you know, hey, I don't feel good. Oh, it's okay. Go to school. You'll be fine. You know, that kind of thing. Just keep going. You'll be fine. So it's so true. Um, okay, I have another question about human design. Then we can
Yeah.
talk about something else. But I just want to ask, my birthday's in August. When is your birthday?
February.
Okay. So it's interesting. I'm curious, is there a pattern to the dates, the birth dates, in terms of what type you are? Like, uh, you know what I mean? Or could it just be completely like somebody born the day after me could be a reflector, somebody born the day before me could be a generator. There's no
Yes.
rhyme or
Yeah.
reason to it. Okay.
No, because it's based also on location, right? And the year that you're born. It's more than just the month that you're born in, like
Yeah,
astrology, right? The astrology is only based on, right, the month, the
the
time of
month.
year,
Yeah.
right? The time of year that you're born. No, this has a lot to, well, it also does it, they also use time and location in astrology, but I'm not sure how, I don't know how they actually generate the charts. Like, I don't know it at that level. And
Yeah,
I've
it's
never known anybody who actually knows how to do that. As far as I know, it's a formula of some sort that they use.
yeah,
Yeah.
that'd be interesting to find out.
Yeah. Yeah. You're
Yeah.
like, got to know the deeps. What makes that thing work?
Oh my goodness, I am so bad. Like, is that part of being a manifesting generator? Because I am.
Absolutely. So the other thing about manifesting generators, and we're about 33% of the population. So,
Okay.
we're talking to quite a few people here. And one of the things that we're really meant to do is take a look at processes and then refine them, make them faster, make them better.
That's funny.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
having worked in the tech environment for, decades, yeah, that's what I would do. I would just play with the software and find a better way, more efficient way. Like, I was like, I designed my business to help you increase your productivity. I mean, that was what I did under my other umbrella, which was called Smart Operating Solutions. Um,
Yes. And that's a great segue. So let us change gears here and talk about that for a little bit. Talk about sort of your transition into was it corporate?
yeah, well, it
Yeah.
was a yeah.
Okay. So your transition sort of into the corporate world and then from the corporate world to this entrepreneurial role that you're in now. I would love to hear about that journey.
Okay, so it's not quite the way that you explained it, but that's
Okay. Yes, please
okay.
correct me.
I know, because you don't know my story. Right? So when I was in my 30s, and by the way, that was a long time ago. That was in the 90s. And
Well, you look fantastic. So,
thank you. And I worked inside, I did some work around what was I meant to do. I was been on this sole purpose thing, this is the second time I'd actually, done some career counseling, kind of where I was meant to be. And they said, "Oh no, you should be teaching." Well, I kind of knew I was a teacher right from, they wanted me to be teaching music. They said, "Oh, you should be teaching music." I haven't touched my violin in years. Why would I be teaching music? So I was like, no, 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 no. But I had become pretty proficient with this piece of software. And so I found a job inside an engineering company, and they hired me basically for my contacts in the industry. They wanted me to, build the sales piece. I went to work inside they had a training department where they were teaching people how to use the software. Now, this is in 1990.
wow.
So, where most people hadn't even seen a computer, never mind sat at one. I mean,
Yeah,
that's
and
how.
if you had a computer, wasn't it back then it was like the black screen with the green lettering, right? No color.
Well, we weren't even using PCs at the time. We were working on off of a mainframe, back in those days. But
Wow.
our training department were the first early adopters of PCs. And then I was like, well, why isn't everybody else using a PC? And they're like, oh no, and I'm like, you got to see the speed that we're using over here compared to what they were doing. Anyways,
Yeah,
I digress. But
that's
anyway,
interesting.
so I ended up building a business inside a business. Like, I had to, I worked with three guys who had their masters in education and computer applications, and they taught me how to write courseware and how to do stand up. and, stand up and do the training. And, so I learned how to do sales, and I built the business on cold calls because this was before the internet, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, the internet existed, but not like
Not
today. It
like
wasn't
now. Yeah.
mainstream. No. So 7 years later, I was at my desk. I had just finished teaching, and I would like teach full out, like from 8:30 till 4:30 in the afternoon, but full on for 4 days, kind of like boot camp.
Okay. Yeah.
Eventually, my clients called it boot camp. So because that's kind of how it was. It was quite intense. And then I remember on a Friday sitting at my desk, and I was so exhausted. It was like my head had literally collapsed on my desk. And I was like, oh man, this just doesn't make sense for me to do this. It's just like, why am I here? I should be going and restoring myself so that I can show up Monday with my best self.
Yeah. Yeah.
So eventually I just said to them, well, when do I stop selling for you and start selling for me? And so shortly after that, it was in 97, I launched my business as a software trainer, as an entrepreneur. And I did very, very well. But it wasn't until after I had my children, who I had at the age of 53, I had twins on my
Yeah.
own,
That's amazing.
right? We had
Oh
that
my God.
conversation.
Yeah.
And then I didn't realize, like, I knew how important it was to look after myself, but after I had kids, I the mindset shifted, is that no, I have to look after them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I forgot to look after this.
Yeah. You put yourself second there. Yeah.
I did. And I had lots of support in the first year and a half, but when they were 19 months old, I lost all my help. And so things kind of went downhill. So I I started, and of course the industry changed. So in 2012, the industry completely changed from being on, doing business by phone. People
Yeah.
didn't answer their phones anymore because all the people that I had worked with had either retired or moved on, or, into senior positions. And it was a whole new generation of people. And so I started doing taking courses on online marketing, right? Because I couldn't even write emails. Like, I don't know if did I share that with you? I don't know if
No,
I
no,
did.
no. I haven't heard that yet.
Oh, well. So people were sending me emails because that's how they were now doing business. But I had this old story that I couldn't write.
Mm,
And I would be
yeah.
frozen in front of my computer trying to figure out how I was going to respond, right?
Yeah.
Through email. And I had no idea. And we didn't have ChatGPT.
I was just going to
And
say that.
you know what? I have only recently, I think probably in November, I embraced ChatGPT finally. And now I'm just like blowing it out of the water.
Oh my God. ChatGPT, just a quick side note, and then we'll get back to that. But ChatGPT is amazing if you know how to use it correctly. I think a lot of people don't prompt it the right way and aren't happy with it, or are afraid of it. But if you know how to use it and how to prompt it, it's an asset to any business by far more than a threat. So that's just my that's my advertisement for ChatGPT. It's
Oh,
amazing. It's my
absolutely.
assistant. I I talk to him every
Mine,
day.
mine too. And we've been creating crazily. But I just want to go back to this piece about responding, because this is really
Yes.
important
Yeah,
for
go
both
back.
generators and manifesting generators. So our strategy for marketing, now you may already know this if you've played around with a little bit, is to respond, right? It's to respond to others people's comments, to
Mhm.
their emails. And so people were sending me emails and I wasn't able to respond. Or even when I first started embracing ChatGPT, I would go, okay, well, it can respond to something, right? I'll just tell it what they wrote me and ask it to, I want to say this, this, and this. And then it would write me a beautiful, nice little email, and I would just copy and paste it, probably not even read it. Now, I don't recommend doing that.
No.
What? But one of the things I have discovered is not only are we meant to respond, but the truth is we're meant to respond from pleasure.
Okay.
So meaning that we need to, and as manifesting generators, we can move really fast, but we are really meant to slow down. And when we're writing that and getting the response is just take the time to read it and just let it infuse how you're going to feel, how that other person is going to feel on the other end of this. Like, is this going to really make them feel seen and heard and understood?
Mm,
And I was like, oh, I love how ChatGPT has finally embraced what I'm really wanting to say. But I needed to slow down enough to be able to do that and to embrace that. Oh, yeah, if I'm responding from pleasure, then yeah, that's exactly what I want to say.
yeah. It's funny. It's funny you say that because years ago, well, I don't know if I told you this. I think I might have that. I was in the real estate industry before I started marketing, right? So that's kind of where my journey began. But back when I was first in the industry, I was much younger, right? I used to respond to emails with, they called it the poison pen. You ever heard that phrase, the poison pen? Yeah. And I would read an email, and if it made me upset or angry, I would immediately respond. And I've learned over the years, I've changed quite a bit since then, but I've learned over the years that that is not a good idea.
Mm.
So I
Talk
love
about
that you just
breaking
said,
the bridge, right? Burning down the bridge.
yeah, I love that you just said that. And the interesting thing about ChatGPT is, I know recently within the past 6 months or so, I had to write an email to someone that I wasn't very happy with, right? So I told ChatGPT, this is what I want to say. Can you make it sound nice and professional? And so, yes. So, yes, I love ChatGPT. Anyway,
Yeah.
you're absolutely spot on. But I want to know, you said something interesting to me. And a lot of people listening might be saying, well, what does she mean by that? You said that you had a story that you couldn't write. So, by story, you mean something that you've told yourself for years and years and years, or something that happened to you that made you think you couldn't write?
Oh, well, it came from, yeah, it was something that happened to me, which is
Okay.
really usually where our stories come from,
Yep.
right? Like that's when I'm coaching, right? Where when you're doing the transformational work, you really do go back to those old stories, not to stay stuck in them because we don't want to, we don't want to stay stuck there, but we do want to transform them. We want to be able to, take a look at them and feel the energy in our body so that we can transform them. So
Yes.
that story was like when I was working in that engineering company and I had a manager who he was he was an educator. His father had been a dean of a university and he had been he was one of the guys who taught me how to, who had his master's in education and computer applications. And so I didn't have that kind of education. I was a content expert on the piece of software. That's where
Yeah.
I came from. And so he asked me to write something. And so, of course, I still didn't have a belief that I could write. In fact, I almost failed English when I was in college. I just had a teacher who took me aside and, taught me how to write something a little better than that. So, anyway, so terrified with my terrified pen, wrote out. And of course, we don't have access to any intelligence when we're operating from terror, right?
Yes.
We completely shut down. So responding from a very little, very younger place. So I wrote this out and I handed it to him and he literally took his red pen and he took his pen and he marked it all up like this with his red pen, handed it back to me and didn't say anything. And I
Oh,
was mortified.
oh, I don't blame you.
I was really fortunate. There was another fellow that also worked with us. He said, well, why didn't you actually tell her what you wanted instead of just marking it up? Right. But
Yeah.
I carried that with me. It was that I can't write. And I've even had my Akashic records opened and read a few years ago, and they were like, oh, no, you should be writing a book. And I'm like, uh, so I will. I know. I mean, I have lots of stories because I happen to have the 1333 channel, which is all about stories. So
I think that would be an incredible book. Like, I can't write. Here's my book.
Well, it was funny because I was I had pulled out my Akashic records and I was reading it and it said, and I'm like, oh man, I can't write. Well, then I turned around and literally, I mean, I had just been published inside this book as, one of the many authors. I'm like, oh, wait a minute. I'm actually in a best-selling author, in a best-selling book. So
Yeah.
yeah. So it's kind of funny the stories that we tell ourselves, right?
Oh, isn't it? There's so many. There's so many. Some that I don't think even we're aware of that it's a story we're telling ourselves, but truth, right?
Right. 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 So, that whole piece, I mean, I think I shared the other day about my dragons. Can I share a little bit about my
Yeah,
dragons?
I actually wanted to ask you about that. So before you start explaining, I want to know why dragons? What do dragons have to do with what you're doing now? How does it sort of play into what you're doing now?
Well, to begin with, most of it. So I'm launching this piece called The Abundant Entrepreneur. And I don't know whether it's a roadmap, a journey, a path. I'm not yet sure and it's based on what I had called my soul aligned business blueprint.
Mhm.
So it's really for entrepreneurs, but what I know is that, and I have studied this upside down, inside out, what we call the saboteurs, the critics, or our inner mean girls, or,
Yes, inner
whatever, right?
bullies.
Those things,
Yeah.
those voices and those behaviors.
Yep.
And I became really super aware that they were really our protectors. When I became really aware that they were our protectors, I realized, oh, they love us so much. They love us so much. They will do anything to protect us.
Yeah.
And there's been lots of studies, but for some reason, the other thing is that I know, I had been working with a book years ago by Dr. Paula Reeves, who wrote a book called Heart Sense. And she writes in there about when we listen to myths, right? I'll
Yeah.
use the word myth, not meaning as a lie, but we have lots of lies.
Right. Yeah.
But mythology, when we listen to story, we can start to recognize ourselves, identify with the characters in the story.
Okay.
And I thought, what if I could create these stories? Because we all have stories, right? What if I could create these characters, right? And I could tell myths. And for some reason, the dragons appeared. Now, I was having a conversation with ChatGPT around all of this, and I'm not sure whether it came out with dragons or I did, but it was during Easter. Like, that's how new this is, right?
Wow.
Like, it's
Okay. Okay.
really new. And I was like, oh, but I've also done work around what we call the medicine wheel, working with Carl Jung's archetypes. And I have, done that for over 30 years. And that's what these archetypes show up as or these dragons show up as archetypes. So
Okay.
they have certain characteristics. And I've come up with a series of them that block us in different aspects of our business, because this model that I have for our business, right? There are certain areas that we go into. There are places where we're stopped because of the stories that we have. And I thought, if I could create myths where people could start to recognize themselves, because awareness is the first step in transformation.
Yeah.
And most of us aren't aware. But if I could tell you a story about that part of your business that could help you become aware of without shame, because most of us go to shame when we become aware of something,
Yeah.
right? And in fact, I was just having a conversation with someone about technology, because I want to be launching some of this stuff called Tech for the Terrified. And I said, oh, I see your tech troll has shown up. Well, she started to giggle. So no longer was it, creating it like, oh, it's a bad thing that you don't have your technology sorted out. This is about having a way to tap into it, to make it fun, to make it playful, because we're really meant to have fun and flow. Because to be an abundant entrepreneur, you need to be in that vibration of having fun and flow. And what isn't more fun than having a bunch of dragons?
So how would they interplay with what you're teaching or coaching? Would each sort of like I don't want to say personality type, but be a different dragon? So does each dragon represent somebody with a different story?
A different
Okay.
story, which
Yeah.
often is blocking in a particular area of your business.
Okay.
Because, I have those, I talk about the 4 pillars I use in the business. Like, we are the foundation of our business.
Yeah.
Right. We, and the basilisk, basilisk, the burnout basilisk, which is the dragon that often prevents us from looking after our health, from looking after our, our health and our
Yeah.
feeling better. That's part of the foundation. So that is one of the dragons that lives in the foundation, right? But when we transform it, it also will now be looking out for us. So rather than keeping us pushing and shoving through, because we need to change that mindset, change that story that we have to keep pushing to create, but allow us to really recognize, oh, it's time for a bliss break. It's time to go and celebrate our wins and restore and go out and play. Especially as manifesting generators, we need to do that, right? To restore. We need to be doing what lights us up. And so that's just one of them, right? And then, of course, we have our dream, and we have, oh my goodness, how many times have you buried a dream? I know that one, right? I didn't have my kids till 53. I had buried the whole idea that I would ever have children when I was 38.
Wow. Yeah. I'd love to talk about that for a minute, but talk a little bit more about the dragons, because I'm really trying to picture them in my head,
Okay, well, they have names. I've got, actually, we've uncovered about 20 of them, at least 12. We have the Overthinking Oracle, who scribbles endless plans to keep you from being seen, right? Those things that we do, and then we think we need to just keep creating more stuff. There's the Chaos Hydra, who juggles ideas and offers and directions and distractions, and just keeps us creating instead of actually stepping out and being seen and actually getting anybody in our business and serving them, right? Or the invisible worm, who's hiding you just enough to keep you safe, right? Because visibility is a big thing for people, right? They're like, ooh, I don't want to be seen. I mean, honestly, 2 years ago, is it 2 years? 2 years ago, maybe 3. The only thing I could ever post were pictures of my children and my cats. You would never see a picture of me, ever. I couldn't stand up. I couldn't speak. But I've been on this journey, and I've been learning and growing. And so that, like, it's only been 5 years since I stepped into becoming a transformational life coach, which, has morphed into becoming a soul purpose coach since I've, started doing this work.
Yeah.
And so I know what it was like to really try and grow a new business. It wasn't the same old business.
Yeah. I love that. I love everything you just said. So this dragon thing is new, and it's still a work in progress. So for anyone listening, make sure to keep following Sue so that you can get a hold of whatever it is that she puts together for us. Real quick, because we're kind of approaching the end of the time here, but I do want to just touch on the fact that you had kids when you were 53 years old, because to me that is amazing. And what I want to know is what what was it at that age that made you say, okay, I can't give up this dream. It's possible for me to have kids. I'm going to do this now. Because some people might have said, oh, I'm too old. I'm not even going to bother. So I love the fact that you went through with it. And how amazing is that you got twins?
Yes, I have 2.
Right? Was that, I'm guessing you weren't counting on two, were you?
Well, I had almost implanted 3 embryos, but something stopped me at the last minute.
Oh,
Well,
God.
so when I was I guess we were in our late 40s, and a friend of mine who I, would travel with to these women's spiritual, gatherings, women's gatherings. One day I guess I was driving her home or she was driving me home. I don't remember what the deal is, but I remember her saying, I'm going to adopt. And I remember my being going into a full state of joy. And I was like, what the heck was that all about? And so I helped her, prepare for her daughter. And, she went and adopted a little girl from China. And about 2 years later, I remember her calling me and she said, you can still be a mom. And I was like, what? She goes, yeah, I know somebody who just adopted a 10-year-old, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so there was and then there were all these little breadcrumbs that dropped. That night I went to the store. It was back when Blockbusters existed. And I went and got this movie. And in this movie, there was this woman. You might even know the name of the movie. I can't remember it, but she was a chef in New York, and her sister was coming to visit her with her daughter, and they have in a car accident, and her sister passes away, and she
Yes.
ends up adopting her daughter, looking after. Anyways, there's that whole story. And it was like, wow. And then there were a bunch of other things that were going on. But I was at the time doing some experiential sound work with a woman who channels Gaia. And we were just sounding. But I remember a couple of days later, or about a week or so later, realizing that I really wanted to look at adoption. And so I found out that there was a seminar that was going on. So, but I was really terrified. And so I shared it with them, and they said, okay, lay on the floor, and they put their hands on me and they sounded. And I had this experience. I think I shared this with you. Did I?
I think so. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. And it felt like every mother that ever existed passed through my body. And I was like, I couldn't believe it. Was just something, it was such a wild energy.
Wow.
And I was told that that was the Great Mother. And occasionally I can now connect with her. It's been a while since I've had that great connection with her, but I know she's there. But it was only about a month or so later, I woke up one morning and I heard this little voice, and it said, you've always wanted a baby of your own. And I was like, yeah, that's true. And then a few days later, I heard, you need to get your body ready. And I found a book. I was on my way to Vancouver, and I was in the Toronto International Airport, and this big bookstore with big high ceilings and clear glass windows. And I walked over to the fertility section and pulled this great big book off the shelf, and I started my research. And I had no idea. I had absolutely no idea what IVF was, what any of that stuff was. I had no idea. But literally, that was in April. Yeah, that would have been at the end of April, I think, when that happened. And I had 2 embryos implanted in November. And 9 months later, I gave birth to 2 very happy, healthy, handsome twin boys.
Oh, I love that. What are their names?
Sam and Jake.
Oh, that's awesome.
And now they're playing football. They're 15. So
I know that must be a fun age for 2 boys.
oh, yeah, well, it's a little challenging. Like this morning, what? We don't want to go to school. We can't get out of bed. Yeah, it's yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then my dragons show up.
Yeah. Well, my partner, he has the 2 boys. One's right now 17, and that's so fun. It's like, how was your day at school? What do you mean? Are you hungry? Why? It's like, I don't get it. Anyway, so that's a fun age. And then you've got 2 of them. So good luck. Congratulations, but good luck.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, Sue, I've loved having you on here. Normally I ask, is there anything exciting in the future? But we just talked about your dragons. So I'm guessing that that's pretty much in the forefront right now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I even already have a little wait list for the quiz that I'm putting out. So if anybody wants, we can drop that in the show notes if that's
Yeah,
something you can
absolutely.
do.
Did you have another free gift uh for my audience? I thought I saw it in your information. If not, no
Well,
worries.
it could be. I'm not sure which one because I have many.
Yes, I know you have
Yeah,
quite a
you can
few.
just go over and visit my website at transformwithsue.com and you'll find lots of goodies. Oh, yes, the human design, right? You can get your human
Yeah,
design
it
chart.
doesn't say what it is. It just has a link. So I'll put the link in the show notes, and whatever it is, it'll be a great surprise. All right. Okay. And so at the end of every episode, I don't know if you've seen any of my previous episodes, but I always ask just some random questions
Okay.
to get to know you better. Okay, you ready? Do you believe in Bigfoot? You
No,
live
but
in
my
Canada, so
son
you
does.
must.
My son does.
Yeah. It's a big debate here in my household. I don't personally. I think there would be evidence by now. There would be concrete evidence and photos and videos. But
Well, unless he's like the invisible worm and he just doesn't
that's
want to be seen,
that's what the argument is. He's elusive, and they go through wormholes into different dimensions and all this stuff. So I don't know. It's a big debate. I love to ask people about it. So
My son would have a conversation with you about that for sure.
that's funny. Okay, well, you'll have to tell him I asked you that.
Okay.
Okay, next question. If you could go to space and walk on the moon, would you?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay,
Uh-huh.
awesome. Last question. If you could have dinner with any one person, alive or dead, who would it be?
That's a tough one. My grandmother.
Oh, I love that.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's a great one. That's a great one. Awesome. Well, we will end on that note. It has been awesome chatting with you today, Sue. Thank you for coming.
Oh,
And
you're welcome. It's been a delight. Thank you so
yeah,
much for
sharing your wisdom,
participating.
such interesting stuff. Everyone, keep your eye out on Susan, follow her, keep up with what she's doing, and hopefully your dragon quiz will be out soon.
Mhm.
All right, everybody, thank you so much for tuning in to the Born or Made podcast, and we will see you next time.